Welcome to the show today. Today, I have Peter Kasahara on the show, and he's the managing partner at PwC Digital Services. And very excited to dive into your story, learn a bit more about what you're up to and what you've been up to, and the story behind Peter. So, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. And
thank you very much, Daniel, for inviting me. Yeah.
Let's maybe dive right into your story. So, Peter, can you tell us a little bit about some of the defining moments that you feel really shaped you as a human being, really shaped you as a leader?
Yeah, of course, happy to do so. So I come from a family which is very much in entrepreneurial spaces. So I wanted to combine the entrepreneurship also with the corporate world. So I see myself also as an entrepreneur, made my way through several companies and now here at PwC as a partner. And that's where I can combine the best of the two worlds, to be part and owner of the brand and the company as a partner. On the other side, also be part of a bigger network, mobilizing resources, capabilities, whatever we have on the good sides in order to help our clients, but also, of course, have a strong focus on people. I love people.
I love that, that point that you make. I'm going to go into that in a second as well. Can you pinpoint maybe one or two experiences that you feel had a really big impression on you along that journey?
Yes, one of which was linked to when I was in the gymnasium, so in the college, and my teacher asked me, Peter, what would you like to become in the future? And I said, well, what question is that? I love, doing business with companies. I love also, as I mentioned, the people side. So for me, consulting and advising is the space. And that was for me one thing which always told me that I was not looking around. I already knew from the very early times in which direction I want to head to. And the other one is I'm half Japanese. And my father educated me also with Japanese values. And there were some specific moments I had with him. And one was, he explained me the wabi-sabi formula, the wabi-sabi principle. And wabi-sabi is a Japanese philosophy which means you strive for excellence, you strive for perfection. But in order to do so, you always remain yourself. Only then your imperfection comes out naturally, and only that will make you beautiful. So it is the acknowledgement that we're not perfect as human beings. On the other side, strive for improving. So that's also a little bit the Kaizen approach, but I'm not just a fan of Kaizen and incremental improvements. I also love a revolution where possible, also reimagination.
Now, you're a very passionate human being. I mean, I can say that, after any second of talking to you. And I always wonder about the why behind everything. So, I mean, what is it that that drives you? I mean, in anything, basically, in your life and business in general. Maybe let's start there. What is it that gets you up in the morning to go out there and do the things you're doing and face the challenges and do all the fun stuff?
Yes, I think it's, I believe that work with people can make a difference. And that was always the source of inspiration, the source of getting out in the morning, that there is work out there. If you make a contribution together with people, you can improve our society, you can improve also the work that we do on our planet. And that was the thing which moved me, which gave me also a strong purpose. And through the feedback also that my contribution also is creating some value, then I thought, wow, it's even more accelerating, that's even more rewarding. Without that, the focus of my doing is myself. The focus of my doing is always to have an impact for someone else. That's why, for example, Christmas is for me a fantastic moment, because I see you can make gifts, presents to people, and they then are happy, and that only makes me happy. That's maybe a little bit also a sad side. So I can only be happy if the people around me also really have an upside. Yeah, that's part of my human being.
Interesting comparison to Christmas as well. I like that. So zooming a bit more into consulting, you mentioned this in the very beginning as well. Of course, it relates to what you just said, but maybe we can zoom into that a little bit. So what is it about consulting? What is it about the world of consulting that aligns with that drive that you have?
Yes, of course, consulting gives you the permission to thrill. You have access to information, you have access to a lot of experts around you, and you are connected to the challenges that the society has, the challenges that, of course, corporate organizations have. And through, using the best you find and also combine that with the situation that the company is in, I think this is the sweet spot for me. And this also links for me into the mission that I see. It's helping to grow. And growing doesn't mean just size. It also means not just big, also beautiful. And that's also a little bit my mission that I see in here. I'm here to not to squeeze the lemon. I'm here to create the melon, which is much bigger, much sweeter. And that's what I also want to bring across. Sharing and creating something sweet and bigger, but also beautiful is I think where we all want to go after.
I love this thing that you mentioned, or this combination of big and beautiful, growth. Basically, you said it's not just about size, it's not just about getting bigger and things like that. It's also about more beauty and about beauty itself. It's a very interesting combination. Of course, beauty is different for each of us, yes. But I love that you bring this combination because it's very thought provoking what you just said there. Also with the lemon and the melon, I like that one a lot as well. And I'm also curious about this world of digital. Sorry, you're in this world of digital in the consulting field. Maybe we go there for a side zoom, I would say. What is it about digital that excites you, in that consulting aspect, in what you're motivated at the innermost being? What is it about digital that excites you?
Yes, there are several aspects in there. First, of course, in digital, you can leverage the capabilities that technology and data bring. So you can combine the people aspect with the technology aspect and the data aspect. That's for me one of the key areas. And the other one is also then the interaction with people, with users or with customers. And that's where also the beauty needs to unfold even more. As you need to differentiate from the next click and you name it. Of course, the experience is in the core. And in order to shape the core, you can only transform or reinvent yourself as a company if you bring the beauty in the change alive. And the beauty then also is convincing. It's touching your brain, hopefully. It should also touch your heart. And if this also is then touching yourself and moving you as a human being, I think then we get into the right direction. And of course, you need to know then what is the right direction if you want to move people, which of course is also a little bit linked to a subjective perspective. And that's why I also want to bring into my work not just a Western view. I'm half Japanese, half Swiss. So I also was educated to have the openness to try to see, seeing is always a little bit arrogant, I would say, but trying to see the richness that we have here in terms of cultures, but also the individual likings, the individual needs and wants. And if you can do that, of course, the current technologies also allow you to go then to the segment of one, as people say.
Very powerful. Especially I love this bridge of culture as well, because it gives you a very different perspective, especially if you compare, let's say, or if you put in perspective Switzerland and Japan, for example, or, Europe and Asia, for example. There's a lot of interesting stuff that comes out when you combine edges like that. It's very interesting. I want to go into a bit of the topic of lessons in terms of growth, coming back to growth on the one side, growing as a person, growing as a company. I want to talk a little about lessons. What would you consider one of the biggest lessons that you learned along the journey?
I grew up in big corporate companies, like I worked for IBM for many, many years. And of course, IBM had a strong top-down culture, where you define a global strategy and then also are really bringing that to life in the local aspects. But for me, I always had also a strong need, and there was for me lessons learned to bring in the people, and that this is not just a cash-oriented and also a profit-oriented view. There was a lot about NPV, net present value, but for me it was the P was also about performance, net performance value. And performance follows people, follows purpose. And so through that, I had always a strong desire to create a purpose, and not just in terms of having one and you make it ticks, but also living that authentically. And through this authentication and through also the desire to create an inspiration, then people followed. So I call this also, now we have maybe inspiration, but now we need transpiration in order to make it work. And so that's then the execution arm after the ideas exchange.
It's about having that purpose and living that purpose authentically and being a role model and basically, also leading by example. And that's a very powerful one. Now I'm going to go into something that some people are afraid to talk about. Some are very open about it. It's the topic of failures as well. Is there something that you can point out along the journey? Maybe an epic failure, maybe some interesting lesson that you learned out of it. Is there something that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think it's definitely also, you should never forget yourself in the whole equation. So if being focused on also, let's say, the happiness and the benefits that everyone else has, it's also about yourself. And I recently had such experience. There was 2 years ago, my daughter approached me and said, Daddy, what do you want to have for your birthday? And then I said, if I'm honest, I would like to have more time for me, and also would like to go back to school to learn again. Because, as I think good leaders, they are constant learners. And sometimes you really need, again, a different booster. And then she said, well, why are you not doing that? And I said, well, you have the obvious reasons and the excuses. And then I did not even know that she knew that word. You're not authentic, Daddy. And how can you're not a role model? And I was like, what? So I really have to say I was a little bit shocked. And then I went to work. And on that day, I called my boss and told him, you will not like it, but I will do it. And I will go back to school. And my team will take over. If they will not deliver the results, you can fire me, but I'm now off for 4 months. And I went back to school and did, for example, a fantastic training, started that at Yale University, which was just opening a new training for senior executives. And I thought, wow, let's be part of that. And I did manage to dive into a total richness, also of very experienced people. But the beautiful thing was, no one thought he's important. Yeah. Also, people had quite some track records. It was about the experience, it was about the learning, and not about how big your experience is in terms of what you created, but also how you have created things, and also how you managed to move people. That was always a very interesting. Also, thanks to the university to select such a group of people, not being superficial, but also going into the details of human life.
Very, very smart daughter.
Yes, very smart daughter. Also links a little bit to the, I don't know, maybe the roots of not maybe myself, but also from other corners in my life. Yes.
Very powerful, very powerful. I love that story. It's a great one. Now I want to move a little bit into the topic of leadership, as we're already there actually anyway. So one of the first topics that comes to mind is how do you hire the right people? How do you bring the right people on board?
Yeah, that's interesting. I just had this morning 3 interviews with potential partner candidates, and also just after that a group of young people, and that's you call it digital natives, of course, and it's a strong balance to do that. In the conversation that we had with the partner candidates, it was about, can we create future business? Will there also be a certain profitability in there? And how can we scale that with what we have? But also how can we be, as mentioned, not just bigger, but also more beautiful? So how can we create a footprint in the market which will be lasting? I very much like then a sustainability aspect. And of course, a big focus also on the chemistry and the fit, and also the purpose. Why are people joining? And then with the digital natives, it was totally different. So also had then to quickly switch. Yeah, it took me like 5-6 minutes when I had to switch the mode, because this is also what I part of my leadership style, try to teach, but also demand from our people that they really can adapt, that they have multiple facets as part of the personality. You always need to remain yourself, but you need to adapt to the situation and to the audience. And that's why I also remember myself of an article I once wrote, which was not the wasabi, but now not the wabi-sabi, but now the wasabi formula. And I remember myself and said, oh, I wrote this article, so we need to, every letter means something. And the W stands for, I want to know more about the work-life flexibility that the people are asking, what we can also offer as a company. That's the W. I was also then talking about the access to the flow, access to decision-making, access to information, and what we can provide there, and what the young people were requesting there. And it was also I did show them our experience center and the space for collaboration that we have, also the technical environments. That's also for me, a prerequisite. Then the next one was, and there was a long discussion, what I call the all generations intelligence. That everyone can learn from the young, but also demanding that all the young are also learning from the other 5 or 6 generations, which we have here. Because every generation there are some typical experience patterns in there, but it needs to go in all directions. And then we had a long discussion about, that's the wasa, and then we come to the B. It's also about the business strategy understanding, so that people understand in which direction we're heading, that people also understand what is the purpose of what we're doing. So that's the B, and then the last one is the I, and that was about inspirational leadership. So what is inspirational for them? What can we bring to the table? And this whole blend then gave a good discussion where I managed to understand the people in the room and to a certain extent what moves them, but also what we can offer as a company. I think this is the mix, and then of course the more time you have and also can invest, the better you can understand the people. And that, of course, should at the end result in something which I call, we need to be magic and magnetic. Magic to attract the right talent. Ideally, also they follow the same purpose. Yeah, and magnetic because they sticks. So this is the retention element. Otherwise, bringing in and they move out, of course, that is not sustainable.
That's a powerful formula. And it's what I love as well in there is the diversity of generations and being able to understand that different generations, different people in general have different needs. Going into the understanding mode, that is not always the easiest one to find for some people, but it's very, very essential, of course, even more in consulting. So, and it brings me to the next question, because you talked about this, being magic and magnetic, basically bring them on board, but then also so they stick, so to say. So once people are on board, so to say, or you bring somebody on board or have a new team, or if you have a team in general that you take over, for example, how do you make sure that people actually work together and they work together well and they work together cross-functional, cross-generational, cross-cultural, and all these fun things? Yes.
So it's there are multiple aspects, and I think there's still a long way to go where we need to improve in terms of maturity. We still had some fragmentation in the team, which I joined now. So we started to break down some silos. I also just symbolically did shut down cost centers that people are working now more on a team basis. I changed the incentive schema that my leaders are 50% measured in terms of the overall success. And also a big part of their targets is linked to people, so client, people, firm, that we have a balanced scorecard there. The other one is, of course, to foster the collaboration. So as mentioned, the space, which is a physical space, which is also the technology environment. So also managed to change already in the first step some of the offices here. So all partners need to move out of their offices to go into the open space that everyone then can enjoy then more meeting rooms. And then, so there are several things which we want to change. Incentive-wise, KPI-wise, as you say, but also from the infrastructure. And then, of course, it's the cultural aspect. So it's also very much believe in the initiative from the people themselves. So and that was interesting. The teams are also having some best practices, how they communicate, how they share information. On the other side, I'm very happy that there is a strong bonding within the teams. And they do also outside of work, they do things together. Our women's team just went to the European Championship to play football on the weekend. The whole company just gathered to meet for the October Festival here in Zurich. And then, so there is a lot happening out there. And one of the magic moments for me was we had promotions for the 1st of October. And one of our managers, he sent me a photo. He climbed a mountain in the Glarner Alps. And he sent me the photo and said, this is the last day as a manager. Tomorrow I will be senior manager and I'm ready to even climb higher mountains in the future. And this was for me so symbolic, so personal, so touching, I have to say. You know, I really had to go back to him and really praise him. And so sorry, I had to even hug him because he created such an emotion also in the team. And that's for the better sake of he has an impact, he gets a space, he was thankful, but he also wants to give back. And I think this is the right element, to have this balance, give and take, not just take. You know, there can also be opportunistic corners, but give and take, that needs to have a certain balance, but also find peace, find inspiration in the people around you, which you're also happy to share. And if you manage to do this culture, it means instrumental to maybe try to build such a culture, which is a hard work. We need, of course, to continue on that, and are still not there where we want to be, and we will never be there, I think. So I think that's what the momentum that we need to have and also to live for.
There was a lot of golden nuggets in there. I really appreciate you sharing all these, insights. One more thing I want to zoom into, to take a step back of something you mentioned a bit earlier, is that when you decided to go back to school, you said, my team will take over and then I'm gone for 4 months. Now, what comes to topic there is the topic of micromanagement, the topic of letting go of control and things like that.
Yeah.
How are you able to say, my team will take over, I'm gone for 4 months, and be okay with that?
Yeah, it's a balance. By the way, I didn't come back into the same role, because I told them the team takes over, but they're not closing the gap or so, and then I come back. So they will take over afterwards, which is for me then not just that they're like somehow bridging. They are the solution for the future. And that also gave me then pressure on doing something differently, doing something new. I have done that now many, many times in my whole professional life, and it always worked out. So that's why I also changed companies again after being long for I think over 13 years in the same company. I want to do something new. I wanted to change again. I wanted to go into something also where I need to get out of the comfort zone even more. And I think this is then also a point where you need to be open, that it does not need to be bigger. It also needs a little bit of self-confidence that you can also make a difference. And it also links into finding the right spot. So it also took me over a year talking to people, meeting people, and also creating already a first level of intimacy that you also get behind the scenes. And that's very often tough. If you are interviewing, you have 4 or 5 interviews, how do you really know? And also, what helped me, I was already in contact, for example, with some colleagues here at PwC. I knew them from the market. Some of them I also worked with before. So this combination then gave me also the clarity that there is a good foundation, but there is never, ever the final solution. That's why we're born. Yeah, we need to then work on that.
That was very powerful what you said there, in terms of it was not just a temporary assignment for the team to take over, but you basically made it very clear that this is the solution for the future. And I mean, it's a very powerful, it sounds simple, or it's a simple note basically that you added to it. But I find that very, very powerful, because basically what you give is ownership, right? You give ownership. You're not saying, no, I'm still in charge, so to say. You just take over for a little bit of time and then I'm back, right? The boss is back. And I find that very, very essential, you know, passing that ownership on. And that's what stuck with me in that context. We love that one. The last question I have is a little bit up in the clouds. So let's see where we're going with this. Let's imagine for a second that you're a magician now. You got a magic wand, and you could wish for anything in the world that you wanted to. What is something that you would wish for that could multiply the impact that you have many, many times, either on the work you're doing, the organization, the industry, or the world in general?
Okay, well, there's 3-4 layers, of course, you could have, and we could start with world peace, and of course also the hope for the climate change on the planet. Of course, this is on the top radar. Whenever I see plastic bottles in the ocean, I think, you know, WTF? We need to do something about that. Yeah, but also think a little bit on a lower level. I wish, of course, very well for my kids, that they can also have, like I had, the opportunity to learn, to have an environment where they also foster safety, foster also that they can make a difference, and that they also then can share that with other people. So, of course, this is something which is very close to my heart, also something to my own purpose as a human being, that my next generation is also having is happy. Is happy. On the other side, for me, also in the professional context, for me it is now to really create a new team here, which is getting out of the bed in the morning, to have a purpose in the work that they do, to see with self-confidence that they can make a difference. And that's what I call then, it's a mix like the passion, the pride, and the positive spirit to help our society and to solve also important problems. And through this combination is also links, by the way, that's a coincidence, to the purpose of our company, to create trust. And I think that's something which needs a lot of attention at the moment, creating trust, especially in a world where we see cyber attacks, where we see also data security and privacy aspects are questions, and also in a world where we are facing alternative facts. And maybe linked to that, just one, you know, if there are alternative facts, then we maybe as human beings need to think about alternative acts. And then if we need to act differently, I think then also we maybe can get rid of the alternative facts.
I love how you covered several different layers here. And I mean, also starting from the very high level purpose, so to say, you have something very high level that really excites you / frustrates you in the world of what's happening right now. And hopefully where we're going is a positive direction there. And the other things you mentioned as well, in terms of the layer, in terms of the future, for us as humanity, for us as a generation as well. So I really appreciate you sharing your golden nuggets, your inputs, your insights, and your experiences. So we're going to link below this video to some of the sources, your LinkedIn profile, to the company page as well, so people can keep up to date on what's going on, what exciting is happening, follow you as well, connect with you. And thank you so much for being on the show, Peter.
Yes, thank you very much, Daniel, and looking forward to get also feedback from the people. So it's always important to get feedback in order to grow and to also maybe make even a better and a more interesting difference in the future.